Welcome back to the deep dive. So, we are doing something a little different today. Usually we look at a topic from, 30,000 feet, but today we are zooming in way in on the human machine. We're looking at the specific, often brutal physics of what happens when you decide to take a body that's comfortable running for 20 minutes and, well, force it to run for 4 hours.
Oh, it's a massive undertaking. And, honestly, it's one where the biological reality is often completely ignored until it's too late.
We are talking about the marathon.
Yeah.
But not just the fun run version where you show up and hope for the best. We are diving into a stack of really fascinating data and training protocols from Sundried. And the premise here is just striking. Running 26.2 miles isn't just running longer than a 5K. It is a fundamental reconstruction of your physiology.
Right. It's a species-level shift in how your body produces energy. And I think that's where the disconnect happens for most people, which the Sundried data highlights perfectly. If you can run a 5K, you assume a marathon is just doing that 8 times in a row. But biologically, they are effectively different sports. One is a drag race. The other is a resource management crisis.
So our mission today is to act as the bridge. We're speaking to the learner, someone comfortable with the park run, maybe eyeing a Modem 2026 marathon, perhaps the Chelmsford Marathon that's mentioned in the notes. We need to unpack the physiology, the strategy, and specifically the safety mechanisms required to survive this transition. And I want to start with the physics, because the numbers Sundried lays out are, frankly, terrifying.
They are sobering numbers, for
Yeah.
sure. When you actually look at the mechanical stress, it stops being a hobby and starts looking like an engineering problem.
Okay, so let's talk about steps. In a 5K, you might take a few thousand steps. In a marathon, depending on your stride length, Sundried estimates you are taking between 30,000 and 50,000 steps.
And that number means nothing until you apply Newton's laws to it. The critical data point here is impact force. When you run, you aren't just floating. You are falling and catching yourself. With every single stride, your body absorbs ground reaction forces roughly 3 to 4 times your body weight.
Okay, so let's contextualize that for the listener. If I weigh 70 kilograms...
You're
so-
slamming about 250 kilograms of force into the pavement. That's a quarter of a ton. Now,
Yeah.
do that 40,000 times in a row. The cumulative load is just astronomical.
It makes my knees hurt just thinking about it.
It should. And this brings us to the core analogy in the Sundried Guide, which I think is brilliant and explains why so many people get hurt. The chassis versus the engine.
Ah, this is the Ferrari engine, a bicycle frame concept.
Exactly. And this is where most novices fail. The engine is your cardiovascular system, your heart and lungs. The chassis is your structural system, bones, tendons, ligaments, and fascia. And here is the biological trap. The engine adapts quickly. Within, say, 6 weeks of consistent training, your blood volume increases, your heart stroke volume improves, you feel fit, you think, I can go faster, I can go longer.
But the chassis is on a delay.
A massive delay. Sundried calls it structural lag. Bones remodel very slowly, requiring months to increase density. Tendons and ligaments are avascular. They have very poor blood supply compared to muscles, so they strengthen at a glacial pace. So you have a heart that says go, and an Achilles tendon that is screaming wait. That disconnect is the primary driver of the overuse injuries we see in the data.
So if the first step is respecting that structural lag, the second step is understanding the fuel. You mentioned earlier that a 5K and a marathon are different sports biologically. Sundried talks a lot about the shift from glycolytic energy to lipid oxidation. Let's strip the jargon. What is actually happening in the cell?
It's a question of fuel efficiency versus fuel availability. When you run a hard 5K, you are relying heavily on glycogen. Glycogen is stored carbohydrate. It sits in your muscles and liver. It's high-octane rocket fuel. It burns hot, it burns fast, and it produces energy quickly.
But the tank is small.
Very small. Even a well-fed runner only carries about 2,000 calories of glycogen. That's enough for maybe 18 or 20 miles if you're burning it exclusively. This is the math behind hitting the wall.
The wall isn't psychological, it's an empty gas tank.
Literally empty. The wall usually appears around that 30-kilometer mark because that is the mathematical limit of glycogen stores for most people. If your body only knows how to burn sugar, you stop. The engine shuts off.
So the Sundried Novice Supreme approach is about teaching the body to switch tanks.
It's about building a hybrid engine. You need to transition to lipid oxidation burning fat. Fat is a lower octane fuel. It produces energy slower, which is why marathoners run slower than sprinters.
Yeah.
But crucially, the tank is effectively bottomless. Even a very lean athlete has tens of thousands of calories of stored fat.
But you can't just decide to burn fat. You have to, engineer the cells to do it.
Correct. And this is where the training gets granular. Sun-dried details two specific cellular adaptations: mitochondrial density and capillarization.
Okay, let's define those for the listener.
Mitochondria are the power plants inside your muscle cells. They are where fat is turned into energy. You need more of them to burn fat efficiently. Capillarization is the plumbing. It's the growth of tiny blood vessels surrounding your hypa, slow-twitch muscle fibers. More capillaries mean you can deliver more oxygen to the mitochondria to burn that fat.
And here is the counterintuitive part that I found most interesting in the source material. You don't build this by running fast.
No, and that's the hardest discipline to master.
Hmm.
To trigger mitochondrial growth and capillarization, you have to run at a low intensity, often called zone 2. If you run too hard, your body panics, dumps the fat, and switches back to burning sugar because it needs energy now. You essentially bypass the adaptation you were trying to create.
So you have to run slow to build the biological machinery that eventually allows you to run far.
Precisely. It's metabolic discipline. You are holding back your engine to build your infrastructure.
Which leads us perfectly into the strategy. We've established we need to build a stronger chassis and rewire our metabolism. That takes time. Sundried suggests a plan called the Novice Supreme.
Great name.
It is. But what jumped out at me is the duration. Standard internet training plans are usually 12 to 16 weeks. You sign up, you panic, you train for 3 months, you race. Sundried is pushing a 30-week cycle. That's 7 months. Why the extra time?
It goes back to the terrible twos. Too much, too soon, too hard. If we respect the fact that bones and tendons take months to stiffen and remodel, a 16-week plan is inherently risky for a beginner. It forces the progression too steeply. A 30-week horizon flattens the curve. It allows for non-linear progression.
Meaning you don't have to increase mileage every single week.
Right. You can have adaptation weeks. You can get sick for 3 days and not ruin the whole cycle. It buys you a margin of error.
Let's look at the architecture of this 30-week block. It's not just run more, it's phased.
It's highly structured. Weeks 1 through 12 are the base foundation. This is purely about habituation, getting the body used to the rhythm of running without breaking it. Then weeks 13 through 20 are the endurance ramp, where you build up to half marathon proficiency. Weeks 21 through 27 are peak volume. This is the grind. And finally, weeks 28 through 30 are the taper.
I want to highlight the starting point. The Sundried plan has you starting with a long run of 3 miles, at 4.8 kilometers.
It seems almost absurdly low, doesn't it?
It does. If I tell my friends I'm training for a marathon and then go run for 25 minutes, I'd feel like a fraud.
But you have to suppress the ego. The goal in week 1 isn't aerobic conditioning. The goal is mechanical stimulus. You are gently tapping the bone and saying, we are going to be doing this a lot. Start adding calcium. If you start with a 10-mile run, you aren't stimulating the bone, you are microfracturing it.
Now, as we move through these weeks, we have to talk about volume management. There is a golden rule in running circles. The 10% rule. Never increase your weekly mileage by more than 10%. But Sundried actually digs into some research on 5,200 runners that suggests this might be the wrong metric to obsess over.
This was one of the biggest aha moments in the text for me. We tend to track total weekly volume. I ran 30 miles this week, so I can run 33 next week. But the data indicates that total weekly volume isn't the highest predictor of injury.
What is?
The spike in the single long run.
Explain that distinction.
The research shows that increasing your Saturday long run distance by more than 10% relative to your longest run in the previous 30 days is the danger zone. Specifically, that spike correlates with a 64% higher risk of overuse injuries.
64%. That is better than coin flip odds that you're going to get hurt.
It's massive. And think about human nature. You're feeling good, your schedule says 12 miles, but the sun is shining, your playlist is hitting, you think, I'll just do 14 or 15. You have just introduced an acute load spike that your chassis isn't ready for. You might finish the run feeling fine, but the micro-trauma is done.
So the takeaway is you can be flexible with your short midweek runs, but be rigid with the long run.
Be militant with the long run. Do not spike the load.
Speaking of sun is shining, we need to talk about the calendar. If a listener starts this 30-week plan now in February 2026 for an October race, their peak training block weeks 21 to 27 hits in June, July, and August.
Welcome to summer training.
Which adds a whole new variable, environmental stress. Sundried is very specific about this. It's not just about being uncomfortable and sweaty, it changes the physiology.
Completely. You have to differentiate between external load and internal load. External load is your pace, say, 9 minutes per mile. Internal load is the physiological cost to your body to produce that pace. In the heat, the exchange rate changes.
Because the blood is doing double duty.
Exactly. When you run, muscles need oxygenated blood. But when you are hot, your body needs to send blood to the skin to cool down via sweat. It's a competition for limited blood volume. This leads to what we call cardiac drift. You're running the same speed, but your heart rate creeps up and up because the heart has to pump faster to service both the muscles and the skin.
So if you are stubborn and you stick to your target pace on a hot day, you are essentially training in a much higher heart rate zone than you intended.
Yes, you might think you're doing an easy aerobic run, but physiologically you're doing a threshold workout. You're incurring massive fatigue debt.
SunDried suggests throwing the pace chart away in the summer.
Burn it. They advise using RPE, rate of perceived exertion. If an easy run feels like a 4 out of 10 effort, you run at a 4 out of 10 effort. If it's 25 degrees Celsius, that might mean running a minute per mile slower.
And humidity is the silent assassin here.
Humidity is actually worse than dry heat. The primary cooling mechanism of the human body is evaporation. Sweat evaporating off the skin cools the blood. If humidity is high, sweat doesn't evaporate, it just sits there. You are essentially boiling in your own fluids. The SunDried Guide references the UK Health Security Agency alert system: green, yellow, amber, red.
And the advice is straightforward. If it's amber or red, don't be a hero.
Right. Go on a treadmill, run at 5 a.m., or frankly skip the run. One missed run won't kill your marathon, but heat stroke absolutely will.
There is another silent killer of marathon dreams that SunDried flags, and it's arguably more dangerous because it's internal: overtraining syndrome, or OTS.
This is the bogeyman. And we need to be clear, overtraining syndrome is not just being tired. If you train for a marathon, you will be tired. That is functional fatigue. OTS is a clinical condition. It is a systemic biological shutdown.
So how do we tell the difference?
It usually happens in stages. Stage 1 is functional overreaching. Your legs are heavy, you're a bit grumpy, you sleep, you eat, you bounce back in 48 hours. That's normal training. Stage 2 is sympathetic overtraining. This is insidious. Your sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response, gets stuck in the on position. You feel wired but tired. You lay in bed exhausted but can't sleep. You are irritable, your resting heart rate shoots up, you are running on adrenaline fumes.
And if you ignore that?
You hit stage 3, parasympathetic overtraining. The system crashes. Depression, lethargy, immune system failure, low heart rate. It can take months or even a year to recover from this.
That sounds terrifying. So how do we monitor it? We can't just go by feeling.
SunDried gives us a very specific, objective metric: resting heart rate, RHR. You need to track this every morning before you get out of bed.
What is the red line?
The rule of thumb in the source material is, if your RHR is elevated by more than 5 beats per minute above your baseline for 3 consecutive days, that is a mandate to rest.
Not a suggestion.
A mandate. It means your body is not clearing the fatigue. You are digging a hole. If you push through that warning light, you aren't getting fitter. You are breaking the machine.
So data is our friend. Watch the RHR. Now, we've covered the running, the fueling, and the risks, but SunDried is adamant that you cannot just run. We have to support the engine with functional strength.
This goes back to the chassis. If you just run, you develop muscle imbalances. SunDried emphasizes unilateral training.
Single-sided.
Think about it. Running is a series of single-leg hops. You are never standing on 2 feet at the same time. So why would you train primarily with 2-legged squats? You need to train the way you move. SunDried recommends single-leg deadlifts, split squats, single-leg glute bridges.
And this is about stability, right? Keeping the hips level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you land on one foot with 250 kilograms of force, your pelvis wants to drop. Your glute has to fire to keep you upright. If the glute is weak, the knee collapses inward, the ankle rolls, and snap, there goes your meniscus. Unilateral training bulletproofs the landing.
And finally, for those days when the chassis just can't take any more pounding but the engine needs work, they suggest cross-training.
The run equivalent ratio. This is great for keeping volume up while letting bones heal. Cycling is the gold standard here.
What's the conversion rate?
SunDried suggests a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 miles on the bike is roughly equivalent to 1 mile of running in terms of aerobic benefit.
So if my plan says run 5 miles, but my shins are aching.
You ride 15 miles, you get the heart benefit, you flush the blood, you work the lungs, but the impact force is 0. It allows you to maintain the aerobic engine without stressing the skeletal frame.
It really highlights that this isn't just about willpower, it's a logic puzzle. It's math, biology, scheduling, and risk assessment all wrapped up in a pair of running shoes.
It is. It's project management.
So let's synthesize this for the learner. You're staring at that 30-week calendar. What are the pillars of success here?
I'd boil it down to 4 non-negotiables.
Mm.
First, respect the structural lag. Your lungs will get faster before your bones get stronger. Be patient with the chassis. Manage the spike. Total mileage matters, but the sudden jump in your long run is what breaks you. Keep that long run increase under 10% relative to the last month. Avoid the 64% injury tax.
Third is the dashboard.
Watch your resting heart rate.
Yeah.
It's the early warning system for overtraining syndrome. If it's up +5 beats for 3 days, shut it down.
And finally, the environment.
Respect the heat. In the summer, pace is irrelevant. Effort is everything.
It's a lot to absorb, but it certainly reframes the challenge and makes the marathon feel less like a blurry, scary mountain and more like a series of steps that can be climbed.
That's the goal. And if I can leave the listener with one final thought to mull over. We tend to glorify the marathon as the ultimate test of grit. Who can suffer the most? Who can push through the pain?
Yeah, you don't think that's right?
Based on the physiology we've discussed today, I think that's actually the wrong approach. The marathon isn't a test of who can run the fastest or suffer the most. It's a test of resource management.
In what sense?
It asks a much more intelligent question. Can you manage your body's limited resources, your glycogen stores, your tendon health, your recovery capacity, over 30 weeks of preparation without going bankrupt?
Yeah.
The race isn't the test. The training is the test. The race is just the victory lap for the prudent resource manager.
You are the CEO of your own physiology.
Exactly. And the best CEOs don't burn down the factory to hit a quarterly target.
That is a fantastic perspective. Whether you are lacing up for a 5K or eyeing that 26.2 miles in the autumn distance, we hope this deep dive into the sun-dried material helps you run smarter, not just harder.
Run smart. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.